Hello, I'm Richard with EV4U Custom Conversions, and welcome to another episode of the EV Answer Man. In this episode, we're going to address the 4 most common questions asked when we attend different events. And so, this being our second episode, thought we'd get to them right away, get them out of the way. Probably should have taken care of it in the first episode. But anyway, we'll address those in today's episode, and those are: how far can it go? How fast? How long does it take to charge? And how much does it cost? And then we'll also address a viewer's question regarding pre-charge resistors. So first, how far can it go? Well, we talked about that in the last episode regarding sizing your battery pack in regards to the size of pack you would need to go a given distance. So the answer to that question is just that. It depends on the size of battery pack, the vehicle, the terrain, and the driver. But typically, most conversions are capable of going from 40 to 100 miles. And, you know, some will go further. Some won't go as far. Some of your lead-acid conversions won't do the 40 miles, or at least not very long. But most of your conversions today are running in the 40 to 100 mile range. That's typical. How fast? Well, speed is a product of your voltage. And so a 72 volt system is not going to go as fast as a 156 volt system. But again, how fast depends on your controller that's used, your voltage of your pack, the vehicle, so forth. So there's a lot of variables. But as a generic question, how fast? Most conversions will do 85 plus miles per hour. Fast enough to break the speed limit in every state. How long to charge? Again, how long does it take to fill up your car with gasoline? Well, it depends on the size of the tank, how much gas is remaining in the tank. So it's a tough question to answer, but what most people really want to know is, if you completely discharge your pack, how long is it going to take to recharge? Well, again, it depends on the size of the pack that you have, the size of your charger. Are you charging on 120 or 110 or 220? But typically, it's going to take between 6 and 10 hours. I very seldom have a vehicle charge that long because I don't typically run them all the way down. But this would be a good ballpark figure to answer that question. And then lastly but not least, how much does it cost? Well, let's move over to the other board and we'll discuss that. Well, the typical cost for a conversion is anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000. That's kind of the ballpark. But let's talk about it in a little greater detail. So first off, we'll start with the batteries. And for the sake of discussion, we're going to use the China Aviation Lithium Battery Company 100 ampere hour cells, 44 of them to make a nice size pack, and which is freeway capable. And whenever I'm talking about a conversion, that's what I'm always referring to, is a freeway capable vehicle. And by freeway capable, I don't mean a vehicle that can go 65 or 70 miles an hour. I mean a vehicle that can accelerate to that speed as well as any other vehicle on the road. So 144 cells gives us that. At $143 a cell, we have $6,292. Now, these prices are prices that are on KTA Services website. They're a fairly well-known supplier. They're in Ramona, California. And I'm just using them as kind of a benchmark for the pricing. I'm not associated with them in any way, and so there's nothing to be gained there. Just using it as a benchmark. So, but I just wanted you to know where I'm getting these prices from. I didn't pull them out of the air. You're going to need a battery charger. There's quite a range on those. You can get them down to $600 or $3,500. We're going to go with the cheapie for the sake of discussion. We'll put down the $600. Then a motor. Well, you can go with an AC motor, and an AC motor with controller will run you $47.25. We're going to use for this discussion the Warp 9, probably the most popular motor out there. Excellent motor, one of my favorites. $17.95. Controller. Two of the probably most popular would be the Curtis 1231C or the Soliton Junior. Both 500 amp controllers. The Soliton being a much nicer controller, air and liquid cooled. The Curtis is only air cooled. A lot of built-in features. Excellent controller, highly recommend it. But we're going to go with the cheaper one for this discussion. It's probably not that much cheaper. I mean, it is because this one requires cooling, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But this has several components built in, such as the contactor, so which is like $200 or more. $275 or something like that. Anyway, so we'll use the $14.95 figure, and then you have to have a throttle control with that. The one for the Soliton Junior is $165. The one for the Curtis is $86. We'll use that figure. And you're going to need a DC to DC converter, and they're all over the place too. You can get them fairly expensive, but good common middle of the road price here, $275. And then when I finished this up, I forgot to add in the adapter coupler, and they typically run, you know, they're anywhere $800 to $1,300, but you can get most of them for a lot of different vehicles, $825. So that brings us up to $11,368. That's just the main components. We're not talking about a lot of components that are necessary that we've left out. Motor mounts. I mean, if you're mounting this in a VW Beetle or an old air-cooled Porsche, well, I'll take that back. The Porsches do require additional motor mount, but the VWs, for instance, don't. So you wouldn't have that cost. But most vehicles, you're going to have motor mounts to deal with. Gauges. You're going to need a shunt. You may want a heater. Vehicle may have power brakes, power steering. There's no accommodation for wiring in here. We didn't list the wiring. That's double-aught fine strand welding cables, not cheap. It's like a couple bucks a foot. So circuit breaker, fuses, the main contactor, if you use the Curtis, that comes into play. It's built into the Soliton. A charge port. And then, like I mentioned, cooling for the controller. And then there's, your battery containment. All the hardware, nuts and bolts, your 12-volt relays, all your 12-volt wiring and connectors. You could easily add to this figure by $2,000 or $3,000. Easily, believe me. Done this a lot of times. We keep very careful records of every penny that's spent. I know what it costs. And so this is a very low figure. So add 3,000 to that, you're at 14,000. That's, I'd say you're closer to 15,000. So that's what it would cost you to do a conversion. Let's say that you're frugal and very resourceful. We'll give you the benefit of the doubt and say 12. So I'm going to say the answer to how much does it cost, and this is if you do it yourself, $12,000 to $15,000. And then add another few $1,000s, $3,000 to $5,000 depending on the vehicle, to have somebody else do it. So now you're at, around $20,000. So that's the cost, the answer to the cost question. And so we have another question that came in from a viewer. Okay, and our last question is from a viewer in Australia. And Rick asks, he wants to know about pre-chargers and their importance. And so, what's he asking? What's he talking about? Well, he's talking about a pre-charge circuit which is used to pre-charge the capacitors in a motor controller, DC motor controller. And let me preface this, is that today many of your controllers, and the most popular probably are the Curtis and the NetGain and the controllers by Avnetics. And out of those, there's only one of them that has a external pre-charge circuit, and that would be the Curtis. The others have it built in. Now, for the Curtis, where you have your contactor external, that's where the pre-charge comes in. It's a resistor that's put across the contacts of your main contactor, and that allows a small current flow to flow across that part of the circuit and pre-charge those capacitors. Now, and Curtis, specifies information on that, and I'll get to that in a second. So we discussed why they use a pre-charge. Like I said, it's to pre-charge the capacitors in there. And what if you don't use one? What if you don't pre-charge those capacitors? Well, anyway, this is what Curtis says. And this is taken right out of the Curtis manual. And it's talking about the contactor and the pre-charge circuit. So it says, the rapid charging of the controller's internal filter capacitors causes a high inrush of current to flow briefly when the contactor closes. We were just talking about that. To extend contact life, so they're telling you why you want to use one. To extend contact life, a pre-charge resistor is recommended. So it's not required, but they're recommending it, and they're recommending it to extend contact life. The resistor pre-charges the capacitors and reduces the inrush of current through the contacts. And then the recommended pre-charge resistance values and power ratings are listed in Table 1. Here's Table 1. The controller that we use is the 1231C-8601, and they recommend a 750 ohm 25 watt resistor. This question came up, and this gentleman has asked, he's emailed me this previously. This is not the first time he's sent this question to me. In observing our videos, he noticed that on our marketing vehicle and others that have shown up on, that we've had on video, that we weren't using a pre-charge resistor. And so he wanted to know, what about it? And so it is a recommended thing. If you're going to do your own and you ask me, I'd say, yeah, go ahead and use one. It's not required. It's not necessary. And so what we're going to do right now, I mean, hopefully I've answered that question, but let me show you a couple things in regards to that. We'll go take a look at a contactor that has over 20,000 vehicle miles on it. And let's take a look at those contacts. We'll open and close it. We'll take a look and see, kind of spark we've got going, that kind of thing. We'll look at a brand new contactor that's never been used, and we'll compare the two. And then we'll show you what a 750 ohm 25 watt resistor looks like. So for that, we'll move into the shop. All right, here we are. We're looking at a contactor that's been installed in this car. This vehicle has a little over 20,000 miles on it as an EV, and that's the contactor. Never had a pre-charge resistor on it. So that's what it looks like. I'll zoom in for a little closer look, and then we'll look at another one. But first, I'll show you what a pre-charge resistor looks like. Here is a pre-charge resistor. This is a 750 ohm 25 watt resistor, and it would go across those terminals. In the view here. Okay. So it's an inexpensive component, so feel free to use one. We use it on customers' vehicles that mention, or ask questions about it. We include it. Doesn't matter to me. But on our marketing vehicles and on many of our conversions we do, we don't use it. We've never had a controller failure. We've never had contactor failure. And so, it's one of those things. It's up to the converter what they want to do. I have not been able to see where it makes any difference. And so we've got a lot of vehicles on the road that are running this Curtis controller. So let's take a little closer look. Okay, it's about as close as I can get without touching the lens to the contactor here. Look at all sides of that. And so let me assure you that with my eye, there is no pitting, no wear, no problems. Let's take a look at one that's brand new. Now, let's see if I can get it to where the lighting is more favorable. Anyway, you can see 20,000 miles. No miles. Look the same to me. Well, there you have it. The 4 most common questions regarding electric vehicles answered. And then the viewer question regarding pre-charge resistors. And I'd like to thank Rick in Australia for his question. And I know that happens to be one of those topics that there's going to be 2 sides on that fence, and some will say you're stupid, you should be using a pre-charge resistor. And so, but anyway, I hope I did a fair job of giving you both sides. You know, read you what the manufacturer says, and I gave you my opinion. And that's what this show is all about. We're going to answer your questions to the best of our ability, and we'll give you multiple viewpoints. And so allow you to make your own determinations. And as always, recommend that you do your homework. Be as knowledgeable as possible. And in that way you're able to build the best electric conversion possible. And so we ask that you send us your questions, and we'll try to answer as many of them as possible. And as always, we appreciate you watching, and we hope you stay tuned for more episodes of the EV Answer Man. Thank you again.